Here is a financial newsletter. You really can't read much, but that's okay. I'll read anything you guys need to see. First impression.
No.
Lots of white.
Lots of white.
Is it food at the bottom?
That is food. Yes. So this is a financial newsletter with a very personal touch. He also has to send out the corporate stuff that has no personality whatsoever. It says here, helping independent women and retirees make smart financial decisions. So that's his headline. And then we have, the purpose is to inform, engage, and have a little fun. Please email me back if you have any comments or suggestions. So we have various fall dates, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, Mother-in-Law Day, Men Make Dinner Day. So this is aimed at a female audience. We have a book recommendation. We have food recommendations. And then somewhere down there you actually have some financial related articles and attachments. So see here I have a couple of things circled. There are maybe 8 names and 31 others. He is not using an email service provider. Bad things can happen when you do that. If you just take your Outlook account and you decide to send out to 50, 100 people. Sometimes people's servers will identify you as a spammer, and then you become blacklisted. And none of your emails will go through. If these are current clients, that would be a very bad thing. So if you're going to go the email marketing route, it really makes sense to spring the $20 a month and go with a constant contact. I mean, it's a no-brainer. And in fact, part of what you're paying for, beyond the metrics and the measurability, is higher delivery rates, because they have relationships with these different internet service providers, so the chances of having your newsletter delivered to them goes up. The other thing I have circled here is the fact he has 12 attachments. Many corporate servers, if that's who you're working with, won't deliver those because they think they're spam. Very, very bad practice.
Just Outlook as a whole, even if it's not on a corporate world, will automatically block it. Outlook as a whole, even if it's not on a corporate server, will block images by default.
Yeah. Mike, you were going to say something as far as the overall impression? Or?
Oh, no, I just noticed that, like, everybody just got my email address now.
Yeah. That was my thing.
See, we like to protect that email address.
I've done that in installed clients. You know, customers sent me something and said, hey, I'm looking for somebody to clean this area. And somebody back up, oh, wow, I cleaned this area. Great. Now I have an account in that area. I'm going to call you to service it for me. And now I just got a list of new vendors. And because they sent the newsletter out the wrong way.
Yes, Wade?
Any rationale for squeezing the text in the bottom part of the page and all that white space at the top with all the blue horizontal?
Poor design.
Well, that's really what it comes down to. In fact, the next slide, this is what it looks like inside my inbox. It's, you know, there's really nothing about it that tells you what you're looking for.
Also no link to the web version, but that's because he's doing it himself, not with the service.
Exactly. So it's a strong ding against your professionalism. And, you know, think about it. Financial planner. A lot of us feel really particular about the people that are going to handle our money. We want to see as much professionalism, buttoned up corporate look as possible. So this is probably not helping the overall brand. Any other comments, observations? This was not an example of a good one.
You wrote, the purpose is to inform. You don't need to state your purpose. It's like stating my mission statement is.
Do you know how many clients want to have the mission statement like right up? All right, anyway.
Well, I don't think the marketing
No one
company,
reads.
marketing company that's saying market it right is marketing very wrong, so I don't.
Oh, that's just my letterhead.
Okay. I see that. My eye is drawn to that and nothing else.
Well, fortunately, that's not showing up on his newsletter.
Okay.
Up one slide.
All right, good.
Here is another financial newsletter, actually, that we did put together. This is for a much larger company, and it is for a very specific type of client. These are for their banking clients. It's called the Banking Advisor. So the articles that they publish for this newsletter specifically speak to executives in the banking industry. So there was a change in regulations with the tax code from, a lawsuit with FedEx back in the 1990s. They finally resolved it, and the good news is you can take deductions on any kind of renovations that you do, up to a point immediately instead of having to depreciate it over 18, 20 years. So if you're a large bank, you've got multiple branches that you're planning to update, huge savings. I mean, they were talking about people, I think, who had 7-figure savings in this first year. Great news. So this is the kind of information that their clients will be very, very happy to read. And we can help you maximize those deductions. What are your overall thoughts looking at this newsletter versus the other?
It's nice, it's well organized, the headlines stand out, the call to action stands out.
More professional.
So the big thing that you need to think about, one of the big things, but what's your overall first impression? That was mentioned as one of the things that can get you either unsubscribed or deleted.
It's set up at the website. Looks like those URLs at the top.
Yes, those are links for services, industries, and a lot of templates will let you include links to your website or a landing page depending on how you want to promote your business. But a call to action is a great way to tie your newsletter to your marketing because you're inviting people to take that next step. And in fact, that's one of the things that we'll talk about. So for instance, here, they only have the beginning of the article on their newsletter. It's a personal preference. Depending on what kind of website you have, maybe you have an easy content management system. So uploading a full article to your website might take 2 minutes. Maybe it's a bigger pain in the butt. If it is, you probably want to do this. However, by having a separate link to each article, they can then measure which articles people are reading. So they can test which articles are getting the highest click-through rates, and that will help guide future newsletter articles. So that's one of the things that we'll talk about later in terms of planning. You want to look at your metrics, which is hands down one of the great advantages of email marketing, because you can see who's reading, who's not, what are they clicking on, and by looking at that behavior, it tells you, okay, I need to have more of this kind of article, fewer of this kind. Otherwise, and I'll show you one that we do actually, but the entire newsletter is in the email. So it's a really short, quick read, but you're just looking at open rates, which is more limited. But it's a completely different industry and they have a very different client base. Here's another example. It's a technology newsletter. Some of you might have gotten this newsletter. The subject line is, what the WWW, which I thought was really fun and intriguing. Well, what do you guys think of this? Just overall look. And just so you know, this talks about Sandy, and in lieu of holiday gifts this year, we'll be making a donation, which is great. This is a plug for the company saying, this is how we help you. And this is something informative.
Text too small, in your opinion?
Not necessarily. I mean, it is small, but you can increase that on your email client. Most people know how to do that.
Depends on how the email is coded then.
Yeah.
Not always possible.
You could just blow it up on your screen, Option plus.
Yeah, I don't bother with that. My eyes haven't gone downhill yet.
I don't like the social media stuff up at the top. It kind of dilutes the brand before you even get to the brand. You know, it should be maybe underneath it in the right-hand column. For some reason, the right-hand column feels like it's in the wrong place, that it should be on the left. Because it's more like a table of contents, from what I'm seeing.
It is a table of contents?
I don't know.
No, it is, I'm telling you.
It feels visually it should be on the left. What do you think? What do you think?
Yeah,
So
that
you-
paragraph on the right seems out of place.
It's just kind of hanging there.
And it needs some kind of balance, some kind of image.
Unless they wanted that to stand out, in which case, yeah, it should have some color difference or an image or some call to action. Like, maybe there's a reason why they want that by itself. It's how we can help you, but if you said that's at the bottom, then
Actually,
maybe things are disordered.
how we can help you is here not once, but 3 times. Let me show you the rest of the newsletter. So like I said, when I got this, I was intrigued by the subject line. That article doesn't show up until here.
Right.
So it's way down. In fact, you have 3 articles that are pretty meaty. It talks about the problem of having a confusing URL so that people have a hard time finding your website. Very important problem, because if someone can't find your website, they're not going to spend too much time looking for it. They're going to get bored and they're going to leave. It's talking about issues that they found with Windows 8. If anybody has switched to Windows 8, or if you're thinking about it, this is something you're going to want to know. And then he has another article that talks about smartphone and tablet battery life. So if you're having problems with your batteries, it seems like they're draining, these are some things you might want to look at. I thought that was a great article, but they were all buried. So one thing you have to be aware of when you're coming up with your own subject lines. 1, yes, you want a subject line that grabs people's attention and makes them open it. But 2, you have to deliver on that promise really fast, because it would be very easy for someone to click on this newsletter and say, you lied to me. Where's my article? So then this section, these are the interesting articles. These are testimonials. This is a plug for the business below the other plug for the business. And here's yet another plug about what the company does. First of all, if you've done your newsletter right and you have educated your audience on your particular area of expertise in a thoughtful, entertaining, and informative way, they know what you do. You didn't have to hit them over the head and tell them. They figured out what was happening. So again, think about that.
I think for a DIY newsletter, it's definitely not the worst I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Not even close, but there's just so much information. It seems like save half of it and do another one in 2 weeks with that other half of the information rather than put so much in one newsletter.
Yes.
Norm's on our board, and we just discussed this over yesterday.
All right,
Just
we will
too
not
much
be sharing that.
information. Yeah. Too much information. I told them I actually delete it. Then I don't even look at it.
All right. I like the subject line, okay?
I did too.
Yes, I
And
read the first article, but then I
Is it
stopped.
always the same subject line?
Hard.
No.
Talk about
All right.
Good take.
You guys probably have seen this one. Tips from the top.
Oh my God, that's got to be the worst one ever.
Oh, this is Tab.
That's that?
Yes. But, you know, because they know exactly who they're speaking to, it's business owners, these are all relevant. You know, how to know if your board is effective, using key performance indicators to measure your results. These are things that we cover every month. And every once in a while, we probably have our eyes glazed over, like, what the heck? So fine, you don't have to pretend Chris is going to bat you over the head or anything. It's like, okay, you can look it up on your own. So, you know, year-end checklist for your business. These are all things that we as business owners should be looking at. So whether or not the articles are well written, whatever, it's at least speaking to its audience and it does a nice job. Any other?
Is that a form?
Yes, that is a form. I've always thought those were interesting. That's a way to subscribe to the newsletter that was just delivered to you.
If you already got it.
Yes.
In most cases, it won't work, so it doesn't make a lot of sense.
And sometimes it's forwarded to you and you're not. a
Yes.
subscriber. In our defense.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be.
Well, we have the same thing, but again, how many times do people forward the newsletter?
I'm thinking all be forwarded, huh?
Here is an example of a security newsletter that we put together for that client in North Carolina. Now this was an interesting one because it was a blend between they needed help, but they also wanted to use their in-house resources to put it together. So what we would do is work on the two main articles here. So we'd come up with the feature content, and then they would have more corporate news articles that they would put together internally, like press releases. These are new hires. So maybe people will read the new hires, maybe not, but it's an extra link. It keeps people informed on what's going on. And they have feature articles that are educating clients and ideally bringing in more of their ideal client. So for instance, they actually have a specialty in securing places of worship. So every so often we'll put together an article that specifically speaks to the security needs of churches, synagogues, and other places of worship. Overall comments? You look perplexed, David.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out how to fix the header so it works. You know, I think they have those two images up at the top. Well, they're not even the same size.
No.
The one on the left should actually be the same width of the column that's underneath it to make it glow a little bit more. And their header is just, I can't read the name of the company.
Oh,
Whereas in
well.
the blue, it's just.
Oh, that's the name of the
small.
newsletter?
Yeah.
But
Header, yeah.
one of the things I will say about this is it's something put together by Open Moves.
Yeah.
So one of the disadvantages of going with a company like Constant Contact, MailChimp, is it's a template, okay? So you can only do so much. You can hire somebody like David to put together or Steve, put together a beautiful custom newsletter banner for you, and that works out well. But this is an option of getting something out there that does look professional, and they can put it together for you. So, some way.
I think it's well organized, but I think there's a lot of content, and it could be made to look like there's not so much if they open the line spacing a little bit.
Or even put spaces between.
That's a design thing. We're not talking design yet.
All right.
All right. So we've looked at some newsletters here. We're going to move on quickly to some tips. Okay? The Motley Brew. So a quick plug to Eugene Amici and Henry P. Thompson. We love them. All right. There is no magic trip that's going to give you a newsletter instantly without any effort. Sorry. However,
I'm here for that.
but you got the sandwiches.
I did get the sandwich.
Some things to think about in terms of keeping the inspiration and the creativity flowing for your content. Oops, wrong one. Okay. If you're trying to come up with things to write about, look at your clients and prospects. What are they asking you about? What are they looking for? What are their concerns? If you can do a survey, even better. But I mean, just ask them. You're in sales, Dave. See what they might want to see. Because that's going to be your best way of finding out what they want to read. And you've all got people that love you and love working with you. Just ask them how you can help them. What are their pressing needs, and how can you help make their lives better? You're all trying to stay in touch with your industry. You know about changes in regulations that mean people have to use specific types of cleaners, or that people are, maybe the state is eliminating use of certain types of chemicals, or they're changing out the types of things that you can put into your HVAC systems. Share this with your clients. They don't have time to stay on top of the news. They want you to keep them informed. Look to strategic partners who can help you with content. You can publish stuff that's happening in your company. You can talk about case studies of how you have made somebody's life fabulous and how they love you forever. You can look at seasonal items. For instance, winter safety tips. How to keep that space heater from putting your house up in smoke. You can put together an editorial content so that you have an idea of what kinds of articles you want to publish, and you're not looking at a blank page whenever it comes to putting together a newsletter. Look at different types of articles and just space it out. We want to have this kind of article maybe twice a year. And then you can buy canned content out there. It depends on what your industry is, but there are people who publish articles that you can republish. Other people in your industry might be using them, but it's better than nothing.
Do you think that in addition to the consistency of frequency of a newsletter, the consistency of the calendar as far like the content, so like every newsletter should have a case study and a company news thing and 3 tips, or can that vary?
Variation is good. You don't want people to get bored. At the same time, it depends on what kind of newsletter you want to put out. I think most companies here would be putting out something on the smaller side. So I think that having different buckets to draw from to keep it fresh would be good. And then also by testing it, you can also get a feel, depending on how you set up your newsletter, for what people really respond to. Because you might find they love case studies, in which case I'd give them a case study as often as possible. But the other thing you really want to look at, and we talk about that, I think, is what people like about your newsletter and what are they not so great on. So for instance, with one client, we kept trying to promote one of their subsidiaries. Nobody ever read it. Nobody ever read it. So finally we're like, sorry, but people don't click on you. People don't care. So one of the things you should think about is if you're going to do it print or electronic, what resources do you need? I'm guessing a lot of you do not have people in-house who know how to put together nice desktop layout programs. If you don't, you should really hire a pro. Microsoft Publisher, people can spot them from a mile away. They look really, really bad. You need to have somebody usually who's going to be the champion for your newsletter. Sometimes this is the company owner, sometimes it's an administrator. Assign it to somebody and give them the power to just bug everybody. And there is outside help available from a number of resources, depending on what kind of help you need, whether you need help planning, whether you need help with design. But it all depends on where you are with your company and your newsletter. So looks like we're out of question time, but
We're out of time, but if everybody wants to stay, you can stay. It's 2 o'clock.
So. That went fast. It's really interesting.
yes.
Are there any poignant questions?
Yes. Should the template change from time to time, and what about the layout?
Okay. You want the overall look and feel to be the same, so people know who you are. It's got that brand consistency.